Hello, I want to make this video to explain a concept in Tableau that's a little bit different to other softwares like Excel or that you might use for your data visualization. And that's this idea of dimensions and measures, or green and blue pills as Tableau calls them. So I'm going to take a look at an example here in a CSV file. So I've opened up this file. It contains the lane run, the athlete in the 100-meter Olympic finals. And I'm just going to create a pivot table of this. So insert pivot table, and I get my usual window here on the right hand side. When I drag lane to the rows, Excel lists out the rows. So it doesn't treat them necessarily as dimensions and measures in the same way that Tableau does. And this is what most people are used to, and it's probably one of the most frustrating things you find when you go to Tableau as a first time user. So if I put finish time in here, and we change this to the minimum, I can now see the minimum time run in each lane. Okay, I'm now going to open that file in Tableau. So when I connect to a data set in Tableau, the first thing it does when I go to a new sheet is it loads the data into dimensions and measures. So it splits the data into two different sections. The best way of thinking of this is dimensions is text and date fields. So if you've got some sort of text in a field, it should normally be a dimension. And if you've got a numeric field, it should normally be a measure field. And certainly for me, when I was learning Tableau, I found this bit, just till I got my head around it, the most difficult bit within Tableau. And once I started to figure out what these actually were doing and how Tableau treats them differently, I really began to understand Tableau, and I was able to make charts much quicker. So it's relatively straightforward in concept. If I drag athlete to rows, I get a list of all the athletes. And the best way to think of it is, so this is a blue pill, as it's called in Tableau, and a blue pill will give you a list. Okay, it'll give you a list of items. So it's giving me all of the athletes within this column. Down here I have lane. Now lane has come in as a measure, and that's primarily because I haven't formatted any of the background text file or anything like that to specify this as a string or anything. I just wanted to bring it in as its default, and Tableau has picked this up as a number. And therefore, when I drag this measure to the rows, Tableau aggregates it, or in this case, sums it up. So it's giving me the sum of all of the lanes. So they all add up to 700, which is clearly not what I want, or certainly not what I want in this case. And as a beginner, what I would say is, if something like this happens, I would always look to the color of the pill to start with. So that's nearly always where I would start with the issue in my first few months of learning Tableau. So the reason is, by default, Tableau will aggregate a measure. So if I removed this and I dragged finish time, it would give me the sum of all of the finish times. And you can imagine if this was sales or profit, that's exactly what I would want it to do. But in this case, it's lane, and I want a list of lanes. Okay, I want to list out all of the lanes, similarly to how a pivot table in Excel did it. There's a couple of different ways to do this. One I'll show you is after you've dragged it on. So I've now got the sum of lane. So what I actually want here is click on the pill, and I don't want it to be a measure. I don't want it to aggregate at any level. So I want it to be a dimension. Now that still doesn't look quite what I want, because it's drawn an axis, and a green pill in Tableau will draw an axis. Okay, and what we want is just a list. So what I need to change it from is, rather than being continuous, I want it to be discrete. So I want a list of the lanes, a discrete list of the lanes. And now we have a discrete list of the lanes. I can drag finish time to text, and I can make that the minimum. And we're back to something similar we had in Excel. The quicker way of doing this is, if you see something in the measures that should be a dimension, you can simply drag and drop it up. So now when I drag lane to rows, the default behavior is to list it out. So the key concept here is a blue pill will list out the items that are in the column, where a green pill will aggregate the items. I hope that was helpful.